A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hey everyone, welcome back to My Weird Prompts. I am Corn Poppleberry, and we are coming to you from our home in Jerusalem on what feels like a truly historic week. Usually, we are diving into an audio prompt sent over by our housemate Daniel, but today, Herman and I decided to take the reins ourselves. There is just too much happening right outside our door and across the region to talk about anything else.
Herman Poppleberry here, and you are right, Corn. It is March 4th, 2026, and the world is essentially holding its breath. We have spent so many episodes over the last couple of years tracking the shadow war, the proxy conflicts, and the tension in the north. But with Operation Roaring Lion and Operation Epic Fury currently unfolding, we are looking at a potential tectonic shift that hasn't been possible since 1979.
It is intense. We are seeing the headlines about the strikes on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the reports about the death of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But what we wanted to do today was look past the smoke. If this war actually achieves its objective, a new, peaceful, and sovereign Iran, what does that look like? Not just for the Iranian people, but for us here in Israel and for the entire global order.
It is the ultimate what-if scenario, but it is becoming less hypothetical by the hour. For decades, the West and Israel have viewed Iran through the single lens of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the export of terrorism. We think of drones, we think of the axis of resistance, and we think of nuclear enrichment. But if you peel that away, you are left with one of the most sophisticated, cultured, and ancient civilizations on the face of the earth.
I think that is where we have to start. Most people don't realize that the enmity between Israel and Iran is a historical blink of an eye. It is only 47 years old. Before the revolution, we were strategic allies. We had trade, we had shared infrastructure, and we had a mutual understanding of the region. Herman, you were looking into the actual cultural depth of Iran earlier. It is staggering when you compare it to other global powers, isn't it?
It really is. Iran has 21 United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization World Heritage Sites. To put that in perspective for our listeners, that is more than the United Kingdom, which has 18. It is almost as many as the United States, which has 24, but the United States is an entire continent. Iran has this incredible density of history. You have Persepolis, the seat of the Achaemenid Empire. You have the ancient city of Isfahan, which people used to call half the world because it was so beautiful and cosmopolitan.
And yet, for the last few decades, it has been essentially a closed book to the world. I mean, they had a decent tourism year in 2024 and 2025, despite the sanctions, bringing in about 7.4 million people and over $7 billion in revenue. But that is a tiny fraction of the potential. They were aiming for 20 million tourists by 2030. Imagine a world where an Israeli family could catch a 2-hour flight from Ben Gurion to Tehran or Shiraz.
The economic spillover of that alone is massive. But it is not just about tourism. It is about the people. Iran has a population of 87 million people. It is a young population, it is highly educated, and it is incredibly tech-savvy. If you look at the Iranian diaspora in the United States or Europe, they are some of the most successful entrepreneurs and scientists in the world. Now, imagine that energy being unleashed inside Iran without the boot of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on their necks.
That is the part that fascinates me. We often talk about the Persian street versus the regime. We have seen the protests over the years, the woman, life, freedom movement, and the internal fractures that have been growing. There is a reason the regime viewed the recent diplomatic talks in Oman and Geneva as deadly poison. They knew that any opening to the West was a threat to their ideological purity.
Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was trying to play this pragmatist role in late 2025, but the hardliners saw the writing on the wall. They knew that the Iranian people are not naturally anti-Western or even anti-Israel. In fact, many covert surveys have shown that the Iranian public has some of the highest favorability ratings toward the West in the entire Middle East. They don't have the same historical grievances that some of our closer neighbors do.
It is a natural fit. Think about the economic complementarity. Israel is a global leader in water technology, desert agriculture, and cybersecurity. Iran is a country that is facing massive environmental challenges. Water scarcity is a huge issue there. They have the fourth largest oil reserves at 155 billion barrels, and the second largest natural gas reserves in the world at 34 trillion cubic meters. They have the resources, we have the tech to help them manage those resources sustainably.
And let's talk about the physical infrastructure that already exists. This is one of my favorite pieces of trivia. The Eilat-Ashkelon pipeline was a joint venture between Israel and Iran in the 1960s. It was designed to bring Iranian oil from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, bypassing the Suez Canal. It is still there. It is still operational. In a post-revolutionary world, that pipeline becomes a literal bridge between our economies again.
It changes the entire energy map of Europe and Asia. But I want to push on the geopolitical side, because this is where your expertise really shines, Herman. We have spent years talking about Israel's relationship with Europe, which, let's be honest, has been strained lately. If Iran becomes a partner, does that change how Israel looks at the world map?
It changes everything. This is what I call the Central Asia pivot. Right now, Israel has very strong ties with Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. These are secular majority Muslim states that provide a huge amount of our energy and are key security partners. But there is a giant gap between us and them, and that gap is Iran. If Iran normalizes, Israel suddenly has a land bridge to the heart of Eurasia. We are no longer an island on the edge of the Mediterranean, dependent on the whims of Brussels or the shifting politics of Western Europe.
So we are talking about a trade route that goes from Haifa and Ashdod through a friendly Iran straight into the Caucasus and Central Asia. That is a massive strategic upgrade. It essentially recreates a modern Silk Road where Israel is a primary hub.
Precisely. And it reduces the leverage that hostile actors have over us. Think about the Abraham Accords, which we discussed back in episode 928. That was the first step normalizing with the Sunni Arab world. But Iran is the big prize. If you have a friendly Iran, the entire Shia arc that the regime spent billions building, the one we analyzed in episode 766, it doesn't just collapse, it reverses.
We are already seeing the collapse of that arc. Bashar al-Assad is gone in Syria. Hezbollah has been severely degraded over the last 2 years. Hamas is essentially a non-factor in Gaza now. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps proxies are falling like dominoes. If the head of the snake is replaced with a partner for peace, the entire Middle East looks different. No more Houthis threatening the Red Sea. No more militias in Iraq.
It would be the end of the long war. And for the United States, which is partner leading these strikes in Operation Epic Fury, it is the ultimate validation of the maximum pressure strategy. It shows that you cannot bribe a revolutionary regime into being a normal state. You have to support the people and remove the ideological barriers.
I wonder about the spillover effects on other global players. You mentioned China earlier when we were prepping. They signed that $400 billion cooperation agreement with the regime back in 2021. If the regime falls, what happens to China's influence in the region?
That is a great question. China has been playing both sides, but they really banked on the regime's longevity. If a new, pro-Western, or even just a pragmatic nationalist government takes over in Tehran, they might look at those lopsided deals with China and say, wait a minute, why are we selling our oil at a massive discount to Beijing when we can sell it on the open market and buy better technology from the West and Israel? It is a huge blow to the China-Russia-Iran axis we have seen forming.
And India, too. India has been invested in the Chabahar port in southeastern Iran because they want a route to Central Asia that bypasses Pakistan. A stable, normalized Iran is a massive win for India. It turns the region into a multipolar trade hub rather than a battlefield for proxy wars.
They tell the Iranian public, look, you might hate us, but without us, you are Syria. You are Iraq in 2004. To think that we could be on the verge of a world where the most dangerous threat becomes our most significant regional partner, it is almost hard to wrap your head around.
They have spent decades building proxies in Lebanon with Hezbollah, in Yemen with the Houthis, and in Iraq with the Shia militias. They are the masters of unconventional warfare. Is it possible that the US and Israel are finally just doing to Iran what Iran has been doing to the rest of the region for 40 years? It is a mirror image.
Corn, that is exactly what it is. It is the operational fusion of the opposition. Just like the IRGC Quds Force trains Hezbollah to operate as a state within a state in Lebanon, the report suggests that CENTCOM and Israeli intelligence are helping these Iranian opposition networks build their own parallel structures.
Let's talk practically. If you are an investor or a business owner listening to this, what are the first things that change? Beyond the oil and the pipelines, what are the sectors that explode?
It is the axis of resistance playbook, just flipped on its head and pointed toward Tehran. And the IRGC is terrified of it because they know exactly how effective it is. They invented it. Then you have the tech sector. Tehran has a burgeoning startup scene that has been starved of capital and global connectivity. Imagine Israeli venture capital and Silicon Valley expertise flowing into Tehran. You would see a massive tech boom in the Middle East that would rival anything we have seen in Europe or Asia.
We covered the fusion of the IRGC and Hezbollah in episode 757, but that fusion works both ways. If the heart starts failing, the limbs are going to feel it first.
But we should also be realistic about the challenges. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps isn't just a military, it is an economic conglomerate. They control 30 to 40% of the Iranian economy. Dismantling that without crashing the system will be a delicate operation. It is going to take a lot of international support and a very clear-eyed approach to reconstruction.
It is almost like the reconstruction of Germany or Japan after World War II. You have to purge the ideological leadership, but keep the civil service and the infrastructure functioning. It is a massive undertaking, but the reward is a peaceful world.
And think about the impact on Israeli society. We have been in a state of high alert for so long. The amount of our gross domestic product that goes toward defense is necessary but exhausting. If the threat from the east evaporates, imagine what we could do with those resources. We could solve our own housing crisis, invest in our infrastructure, and really focus on internal growth.
It also changes our domestic politics. So much of the political divide in Israel is based on how we handle security threats. If the primary threat is gone, the political landscape here shifts too. It might lead to a more consensus-based domestic policy because we aren't constantly in emergency mode.
That is a very optimistic take, Korn, but I think you are right. It forces us to look at who we want to be as a nation when we aren't just surviving. And for the Iranian people, it is the same thing. They get to decide what a modern, prosperous Iran looks like.
I keep thinking about the travel aspect. I know it sounds trivial compared to geopolitics, but it is so symbolic. I was looking at photos of the Tabriz Historic Bazaar Complex. It is one of the oldest bazaars in the Middle East and a World Heritage Site. It has been a center of trade for centuries. I want to walk through those halls and talk to the merchants without looking over my shoulder.
Or the deserts of Yazd. They have these ancient wind catchers, these bad gears, that are a form of natural air conditioning from hundreds of years ago. It is brilliant engineering. I would love to see those in person. There is so much shared DNA in our cultures. The food, the music, the emphasis on family and education.
It is the ultimate my weird prompt topic because it feels so far-fetched until you realize how close it actually is. On February 28th, just a few days ago, the Omani foreign minister, Badr bin Hamad al-Busaidi, said peace was within reach. The regime was backed into a corner. They chose to fight rather than give in, and now we are seeing the consequences of that choice. But the end result might be the peace they were trying to prevent.
It is a tragedy that it had to come to military strikes. But when you are dealing with a regime that views peace as deadly poison, sometimes you have to break the bottle to save the person inside. Operations, Roaring Lion, and Epic Fury are the breaking of that bottle.
I think we should also mention the effect on the broader Shia-Sunni divide. For a long time, the regime in Tehran has used sectarianism as a weapon. A normalized Iran could actually be a stabilizing force in that religious conflict. If Iran isn't trying to export a specific brand of revolutionary Shia Islam, they can coexist with their Sunni neighbors in the Gulf much more easily.
The Abraham Accords showed that the Arab world is ready to move on from the old conflicts. If Iran joins that circle of normality, the Middle East problem as the West has defined it for 70 years essentially disappears. We are left with a region of emerging markets and cultural exchange.
It is a vision of the future that is worth fighting for. And it is a vision that I think the United States administration and the Israeli government have been very clear about. This isn't just about destruction, it is about what you build afterward.
And that is why the Central Asia pivot is so key. It is the building part. It is the new trade routes, the new alliances, and the new energy map. It makes Israel a global player in a way that our size would normally not allow.
Well, Herman, I think we have covered a lot of ground here. From the ruins of Persepolis to the high-tech corridors of a future Tehran. It is a lot to take in, especially with the news changing every hour.
It really is. And for our listeners, I think the takeaway is to look past the immediate tactical reports. Yes, the strikes are significant, and the military reality is intense right now. But the goal, the why, behind all of this is the world we just described. A world where the Iranian and Israeli people can finally be the friends they were always meant to be.
I couldn't agree more. And hey, if you are listening to this and you have your own thoughts on what a post-war Iran looks like, or if you have some obscure piece of Iranian history we missed, we want to hear from you. We have been doing this for 915 episodes now, and it is the interaction with you all that keeps us going.
We have built an incredible community here at My Weird Prompts. If you have been enjoying our deep dives, whether it is into geopolitics or battery chemistry, please take a moment to leave us a review on your podcast app or on Spotify. It genuinely helps other people find the show and join the conversation.
It really does make a difference. We are a small team, just me, Herman, and Daniel here in Jerusalem, and your support means the world to us. You can find all our past episodes, including the ones we referenced today, like episode 766 on the axis of resistance, at our website, myweirdprompts.com. We have a full archive there and an RSS feed for you to subscribe.
And if you want to get in touch, there is a contact form on the site. We read everything that comes in. Maybe your question will be the spark for a future episode.
This has been a heavy one, but an important one. We are living through history, and we are glad to have you all along for the ride. We will keep tracking the developments from here in Jerusalem.
Stay safe, everyone, and keep looking for those deeper connections. This has been My Weird Prompts.
Until next time, take care.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My Weird Prompts, that's the close from sloth, from man, from long-eared host. My Weird Prompts, until next time, stay curious, keep